The cover page of the book says that this is a biography, autobiography, but it is much more. It is the quest of an immigrant in search of innocence in his old country, but it is also a quest to discover the reasons and the solutions of what troubles the character throughout his life. And it is a literary book in which the Oedipus Rex story of the ancient Greeks goes down to Freud and beyond. And I'm very pleased to meet our new writer, Carlo Mignano. We met briefly in Paris once.
Yes, we did.
What year was that? Tell me, you continued your study, I imagine, and what did you do? You went to college?
Yeah, when I came back from France, yes, I went to college. I got my master's. Well, I got my BA from Hunter College, and then I got my master's from NYU.
Now, with Hunter College, I imagine, I know there was a professor there, Professor Mario Fratti, yes. And I think you said that you took a course with him?
Yeah, I took actually 2 courses in, I think it was called Italian culture. He did.
He's very famous. He did a movie only 4 or 5 years ago, yeah, 9.
Right, very good movie.
Tell me, you specialized in something in school, and was it in college or graduate school? Well,
I went for my BA at Hunter in cinema studies. That was my main thing.
Cinema studies.
Cinema studies. My secondary thing was languages. I always liked the languages, Italian, French.
And I imagine you took psychology, right? Because the book is much about psychology.
Interestingly enough, I have never taken formal psychology, but I always read books on psychology, yes.
So you know that you're being influenced by the psychology subject, right?
Well, I analyze things, so, and I do try to make sense of things.
And you read Freud also?
I read some books by Freud, not much, but I read mostly what I've read as far as psychologists, what they call popular psychology.
I see.
Self-help type of books.
It's strange because I do feel this book is highly psychological. Mm-hmm. And it was a very good book to have, to be honest with you. There was an Italian critic. He was asked, what is art? And he gave a little story and said, if you take a glass and you put water in it, and then you put a sugar cube, what you have is a glass of water with a sugar cube. Mm-hmm. But if you stir it nicely and thoroughly, mm-hmm. then you have the end result is water sugar, which is not water with sugar, but it's water sugar. And to him, that is art, the art of putting elements together. Right. And if it's the better it is put together, the better you have an art. Mm-hmm. And I think you succeeded in this. I don't know how you're saying now that psychology is not your major forte, right. But instead I find it heavily psychological. I found a lot of Oedipus complex, mm-hmm. in this. It's a very classical thing. The Oedipus complex is in ancient
Greek tragedy.
Greek, yeah. The oracles of Apollo, mm-hmm. accused Oedipus king Rex that he killed his father and was having love with his mother. Right. And when the mother found out, she killed herself. And when he found out that he had killed accidentally his own father and then married accidentally, mm-hmm. unknowingly, his own mother, he stabs his own eyes, and that's the tragic Greek.
Right.
But then there is Freud. Freud continues with the Oedipus complex. In fact, I think he calls it the complex. And here I found it a lot of it. Maybe we could elaborate on this. Could you tell me what is that you wanted to say in this book?
Okay. Well, the first thing was I believe all human beings, we feel that our life is special, is unique, and we need to let other people know. So I think originally that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to express the uniqueness of my life. As time went on, because I wrote the book throughout quite a few years, the scope evolved. I wanted to understand my own life. I wanted to understand life in general. But I wanted to come to terms with myself and with the individuals that I had not come to terms with yet. So that was one of the goals. But also, towards the end, the book was not so much, well, the content was already there, but what I was trying to create was an aesthetic experience for the reader. And that's what I focused on. So after I had written the book, then I began to edit it, I began to look at the language, and I wanted to create a rhythm of words, sentences, paragraphs, and even events that will work on a subconscious level to create that kind of effect.
You said that experience of your life, also the book here, I imagine the editor says that this is a autobiographical narrative that shows that it's not necessarily autobiography. Is it, according to you, or is it, these are invented characters in planted place, I imagine, no?
Yes. Well, I had to invent characters because, again, I was trying to create this experience for the reader, and in order to get that to succeed in inventing this experience, I had to create characters. I had to structure the book in such a way that I will achieve my, my goal. So, so I could not stay factual. I could not stay with the facts. Those facts became an inspiration, but I invented events, characters, and all sorts of things. So it's autobiographical. It's based on my biography, but it's not. I call it a piece of fiction.
My wife read your book also.
Yes.
She found it excellent, but she found that the main character, Francesco, is very self-centered, narcissistic almost. I find the person a little hypochondriac. He's always either sick or claiming to be sick or feeling uncomfortable. It may be a little depression there. I don't know, but it's a character that catches you and you want to continue to follow. And by the way, your writing is very smooth in reading. The book, once you pick it up, you want to finish because it's very interesting. But is there much in, by the way, Francesco is the main character.
Right.
And is he, well, how would you define him to be self-centered, domineering, or maybe depressive?
Yes, I believe that Francesco is depressive, and Francesco has a very twisted perception of life. And that's what the book is really about, for Francesco to find contentment, to get to the point where he will feel comfortable in his own skin, because throughout those few years of his life, he's not there. He feels like a stranger in his own body, in his own environment.
The editor in the back of the book says that the boy, or actually you say in the book that
Right.
the boy is a precocious boy, and he begins to notice things around him at a very early age. The editor in the back says that at the beginning, when the new brother was born, that things began to change. But I read it even before the boy is born, that the boy begins to feel uncomfortable, that the mother, he feels that the mother doesn't love him, or the mother has some distance, and he follows her aunt, his aunt, or the grandfather.
You are correct. He felt that way because, well, the mother was not happy. She was not a happy woman, and I don't know if she was happy about Francesco, because her relationship with the husband, or my father, if you want to say so, was not so great.
Keep it as the character.
Okay. So that relationship was not great. So Francesco felt that conflict, that tension from the very beginning, but that tension became more prevalent when the brother was born, and the mother found a good pretext to alienate Francesco.
So the boy, from that age, already at the age of 2 to 3, already begin to feel that uncomfortable about life.
Yes, he was.
And he goes on. And then it came to the point, because of studies, he has to go to a monastery.
Right. Well, because the mother was very set on having this boy get an education, and in the town, it was a small town. There was an elementary school, but there was no junior high school, no high school. So the only way to go to school after grammar school was in the monastery, because in the monastery.
But he went there to study, and in fact, in the beginning, he says, I don't want to go to the monastery.
Right.
But once he went in, I mean, to show that he was a kind of has unusual, intense feelings, and he cannot, once he starts having these feelings, he continues. So he went to the monastery, and he now wants to become a priest. But then what happens?
Well, Francesco was very insecure, going back, like I said, to the very beginning. So when he's in the monastery, he was manipulated by the priests to believe that if you were there, you had to be there to become a priest. That was the only reason to be there. So
well, that's the purpose of the priests. They have a school because they want you to become a priest. But you were taken, not you, the character.
Yeah.
He all of a sudden changes as he wants to become a priest.
Yeah, because this is in the book, because one of the priests gives a sermon where he talks about Judas, and he says that anyone who is there not to become a priest, but for other reasons, is a traitor, just like Judas. Now, Francesco doesn't want to feel that way. So Francesco has to change his mind in order to be able to cope with life in the monastery. So that's what he does.
But then he really even asks the mother, or tells the mother, I want to become a priest. Right. He wants to become a priest.
Yeah, but it's all based on fear.
The guilt.
Right. If I don't become a priest, you become a traitor. I'm not going to be pleasing God.
Then he meets a girl. I mean, he meets a girl when he was still 8 or 9, and he loves her. He wants to marry her.
Well, Francesco.
Graziella.
Yes, Francesco is insecure. He's not receiving the love that he wants, so he's always looking for love. And Graziella was one way to be dreaming about, the love that he was missing.
And he writes a poem.
He writes a poem to Graziella, yes.
But then he has to leave. He leaves eventually the monastery because he has to go to America.
Right. He has to follow his parents. He didn't have to follow his parents.
But he wanted to marry this girl. He was 8, and the friend told him, "You cannot marry. You have to wait until the 14."
No, he was just expressing his desire to marry her one day. Yes.
And he said, "You cannot marry until you're at least 14."
Yeah, well, he's inquiring with all.
So the family took him away from the monastery, and they traveled to America, to the U.S.
Right.
What was his impressions seeing America for the first time?
Well, first of all, he wanted to come to America because he wanted to get away from the environment where he was. But at the same, he had very ambivalent feelings about coming to America. He also had different expectations, and the reality did not fit, the expectations. So he was. He was not happy. Also, because when he was little, he didn't have that much contact with his parents because he was sent here, was sent there.
Places.
In America, once he comes to America. But
the parents did come to America.
Yeah, they come, and now he's living with his parents, and that's pretty unusual for him. Mm-hmm. And he's seeing more of the relationship of the two parents, and that becomes a torture for him. Yeah. So America become the first years of experience for Francesco are pretty negative.
Now, in the books, you have lots of dreams.
Dreams.
Freud uses dreams.
Right.
Dante uses dreams. You seem to be using lots of dreams in this. Do they explain? Do they mean something? Do they want to say something?
Well, the dreams, I invented the dreams to illustrate what I wanted to say.
Right.
And I picked dreams that would make the theme very clear, would make the interpretation clear enough, and would add to the story.
Okay, one of them is the vision of heaven.
Right.
Maybe you could tell me a little shortly about this, the dream of heaven. What?
Well, that would take a long time to analyze that, because
it is a sexual.
Yeah.
Sexual experience. The boy is still very young, and
well, it's about pleasure. It's about bliss. Yeah. Heaven. We think of heaven as a blissful place to go.
But while he was dreaming, the mother heard him making noise or whatever, and he says, "Anything wrong?" She says, "Anything wrong?" And the boy says, "No, Mom, everything is okay." Mm-hmm. But then you say at one point that my mother must have heard my moans and asked what was the matter. Mm-hmm. How would I tell my mother when she was part of the problem?
Okay, but I don't know if that has to do with the sexual dream, or it has to do with...
No, it has to do with the vision, heaven vision.
Yeah? Okay,
we have to explain maybe to the audience here that the boy was having a dream of heaven, and everything was beautiful and all that, pleasurable.
Okay.
And he woke himself up as holding hands in the groin, so he explains what was the pleasure. Right. But then, after that, when the mother asked, he says, "How could I tell her when she was part of the problem?"
Well, she was part of the problem because all the issues that Francesco could not understand and could not resolve had to do with the mother and the father. So everything was related to her.
The mother and the father.
Yeah. And the fact that he was in the monastery, partly unwilling, everything had to do with the mother, because the mother was in charge of the whole of his life.
Then Francesco goes to Italy and marries a girl. Not the Graziella that we know before, but a new girl. And what happened to the marriage?
Well, the marriage was a disaster, and again, because Francesco was looking for a sense of security, was looking for love, so he married a girl, in spite of all the bad signs that he was getting from the girl, from the situation. He insisted on marrying her. And after they got married and they lived together for a while,
it did not turn out to be.
No, it was a disaster.
And there you compare, you in the book, you compare the father's marriage or the mother's marriage with Francesco's own marriage.
Yes.
And there is a lot of similarities in those two, aren't they?
Yeah, there is similarity. At the point, Francesco actually expresses a little bit of admiration for the father, because he doesn't feel that he was even as good as the father in choosing, the right partner and not being manipulated by his partner.
There's another love affair that he has with Jennifer.
Okay.
Why? It fails also, right? Why did it fail?
Well, that did not fail from Francesco's point of view. Francesco actually, with Jennifer, he didn't fall in love. He had more control of himself, and he chose not to pursue a permanent relationship with Jennifer.
I read a little different. I read that the girl, Jennifer, wanted to see the family, meet the family. And
okay. I'm sorry. I'm confusing with the other character.
Okay, Jennifer, the one you...
Okay.
So the mother sort of was cool about Jennifer. And then Francesco and the mother go into the kitchen. They argue a little. Right. And when they come out, Jennifer notices that something is wrong, and then she says what?
So what she says to the...
She says she basically ends the relationship. She says, my first husband.
Yeah, because she felt that he was being controlled by the mother. He wasn't, free to make his own decisions. That's and right. she decides to leave him at that point. Now,
the young man grew up, and to the point where he really needed to go on therapies, and he did go a lot of therapies. He even went to voodoo's experiences.
Yeah, he went through a lot of experiences because he wanted to understand who he was, why these things were happening to him. So he didn't realize that he was creating these situations. He was getting into these predicaments because of his own actions and his own way of thinking.
And yet, when he was in the monastery, he uses even flagellation. Now, flagellation means self-punishment.
Self-inflicted pain.
Because he felt guilty.
Well, because it was in that environment. In that environment, with that particular order,
they flagellate themselves. That's what he did.
So he copied. He was just at that point, he was only like 12 or 13 years old.
Yeah. But he goes to the sort of extremes where, in order to resolve the guilt, he flagellates himself.
Because he wanted peace with God.
He wanted peace with God, yeah. Well, then it comes a point where we're going to shorten the thing off. It comes a point where his father dies.
Yes.
What was the feeling of his father?
Well, when his father dies, a transformation takes place in Francesco's mind. He begins to see himself as he really was. He begins to see himself as incapable of loving.
Describe a little when the father is on a deathbed, and Francesco goes in the room in the hospital, and the father is basically asking forgiveness to his wife for anything that he did wrong. Right. And Francesco comes in, and he is not able to say any good word or be close to the father.
He's not, because the father was... I believe that the parents have to establish that contact with their children. In the case of Francesco, the mother and the father always, repelled them. So he grew up fearful of being close to his parents. even as his father was dying, he couldn't get close enough.
I'd like to, time is running, so I have to. There is, as the father is dying, Francesco withdraws, goes against the wall by the window, and he says, I had never wished my father or anyone else anything bad. And yet, I knew that what I had not done to my father was no excuse for what I could have done for him. And now I knew I should touch my father and reassure him. And I wanted to. I wanted to make up for all the times I had been cold, indifferent, and passively revengeful with him. And yet I could not do it. An invisible force held me back.
From the psychological point of view, the force is there. Our past controls the way we feel now, the way we're probably going to feel tomorrow. All those events, that relationship had created the force that was keeping him from getting close to the father, which he really desperately wanted to. The force was stronger than his will.
And then you said something interesting. I fought hard to keep my tears from exploding. Tears of shame I had to hide because they had nothing to do with my father's suffering and his imminent death. The boy feels, he feels remorseful, he feels something is happening now at the death of his father, and yet he says, the suffering, what I feel now, it really has nothing to do with my father's death.
Because I believe that everything that we do has to do with ourselves. You know, the characters in our lives are just pretexts. But yes, Francesco was, if he was going to cry, he was going to cry for himself. And then there's the final scene of the book, which I thought we could read it, but maybe it's too long, but not that long. Anyway, 2 or 3 days after the funeral, the mother calls Francesco and says, come home and I'm preparing food for you. And Francesco says, he says, I know, thank you. He wants to be now independent because he had another dream of his father saying, whatever is past will hold you. And so the son says no in the beginning. Then he calls her back and says, okay, I'll come and prepare food. And so the mother prepares the food. And then they come and they both sit together. Alone in the apartment, and basically, Francesco seems to saying that he's finally at peace because his father's dream had told him, don't see life as is, but see life maybe as a movie. But the last scene is finally the mother and the son are together eating on a kitchen table. Together. See, only one thing changes, the perception. Little by little, towards as I developed the movie, by the end of the chapter, Francesco has realized that he can actually control his feelings by controlling his thoughts, and then changing his perception. So nothing changes at the end of the book, but something important changes, the way he perceives life. And hopefully he has.
Well, I read it in a different way, or my interpretation it maybe is that now the father is dead and he takes his place of the father.
No, but he's got a girlfriend. In the same chapter, the girlfriend comes back to him.
Wish we could talk more about this, but it's now the end of the program. And I invite you to come next time when we will present another Italian-American writer.